Coming up, protests in Iowa City persist even through the wet weather. And a preview of the state government's plans.
Calls for ceasefire heat up around the country.
All that and a profile on a presidential candidate. Important dates this week in history and making sure your facts are straight.
Also where presidential candidates are during their campaign trails, the latest from polls, and something for you to consider.
Good evening and welcome to The Update, your home for news and politics.
From the local level to nationwide, we're keeping you up to date. I'm Jordan Tovar.
And I'm Johnny Valtman. And Jordan, this is our final show of the year. It's been a lot of fun since we started it back in October, and I'm kind of sad this is our last one.
Yeah, Johnny, just thinking of everyone who's leaving from DITV this year and even The Update, it's got me feeling a little emotional. But, I'm excited to come back next year, too, and give you some more local updates.
And speaking of local updates, Jordan, what's going on around here in Iowa City?
Well, Johnny, Iowa City had a visit from U.S. House Speaker Mike Johnson and U.S. Representative Marionette Miller Meeks on Sunday, and Johnson was here in support of Miller Meeks' campaign and endorsed her as well. Johnny, if I'm right, you were there in tandem coverage with one of our other reporters.
Yes, Jordan, me and Hannah Lipsky were at the event yesterday. I was inside with the speaker, and Hannah Lipsky was outside with protesters. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Louisiana Republican Mike Johnson, made his stop in Iowa City after endorsing Iowa Representative Marionette Miller Meeks for the 1st Congressional District of Iowa seat.
She's doing an amazing job in Congress. We're very fortunate to have her. She's dynamic. She cares.
This event also brought in fellow local and state representatives.
I think it speaks volumes about the races here in Iowa that Mike's back here for his second time. We are the majority makers here in Iowa.
While Johnson's Q&A with Miller Meeks was not allowed to be filmed, he talked extensively about the wars in the Middle East.
I think what's really important is that we as a conference stand with Israel.
The national spending budget Johnson helped pass saw more funding for Ukraine, a move he says would prevent American soldiers from being sent to war.
We'd be sending Americans to fight and die. Hard no. Let's see what we can do to keep from getting into that situation.
Serious consequences if we cannot, give Ukraine the leverage to then also seek peace.
Johnson wants to strengthen America again, claiming the weakness America has shown under President Biden a reason for wars in the Middle East.
America is weak, and we allow a vacuum to exist, and we see foreign aggression.
And while the House Speaker and Congresswoman just finished up here at the hotel, if you can hear it, those are protesters at the front of the hotel and across the street. And that's where DITV's Hannah Lipsky is, where she talked to protesters about their thoughts on the House Speaker being in town.
That's right, Johnny. I'm outside of the courtyard by Marriott Hotel, where the protest has really picked up as the event has concluded. As people are leaving the event, protesters have been yelling at them, and the police have really increased their protection on the area. Now, while the protest has been going on for several hours, the rain has now started coming down, but they don't seem like they'll be budging.
We are here to protest Speaker Johnson and our Congresswoman unconditional support to the state of Israel.
A crowd gathered yesterday on Melrose Avenue outside of the courtyard by Marriott Hotel. The crowd were protesting both politicians and the U.S. government's aid to Israel.
We're here to say that we shouldn't be sending money to a foreign state. That money should stay in America, fund the people that are here, and it shouldn't be funding a genocide across the state.
I'm here for every single child in Gaza, every single child who has been found in these mass graves and the rubble of bombings by Israel. I'm here for every single mother holding her child in her arms and every single father looking for flour and food for his family.
The protesters chanted and made noise for several hours, and some were directly to the representatives inside. The entire property was guarded by Iowa City Police and the Iowa State Troopers.
My tax dollars are being used to commit genocide in Gaza, and it's being done in my name as a Jew, and that's just not right. Our own history teaches us that we have to stand against genocide, and right now we're going to stand with the Palestinians.
Now, as the rain continues, so does the protest, and with the exit of the event goers, everything has been ramping up. From outside the Marriott Hotel, this is Hannah Lipsky, DITV.
Looking ahead to this summer, June 4th will be the date of primary elections across the state, with crucial races taking place here in Johnson County. Incumbent Marionette Miller Meeks will be defending her Iowa Congressional District 1 seat against challenger David Pouch from Davenport. For the Democrats, Christina Bohannon is running unopposed in the primary. If things pan out like last time, we're set to see a rematch from 2022 with Miller Meeks versus Bohannon for the seat. Last time out, Miller Meeks defeated Bohannon by 20,000 votes. Johnson County will be holding an election the same day to fill the Board of Supervisors seats for the county. The 5 on the ballot include Bob Conrad, Lisa Green Douglas, Royce Ann Porter, Mandy Remington, and Rod Sullivan. The incumbents are Green Douglas, Porter, and Sullivan, and they'll be trying to fend off challenges from Conrad and Remington. Now, for you folks at home, if the name Mandy Remington sounds familiar, she ran for an at-large seat on the Iowa City City Council last year. She finished 3rd out of 3 with Josh Moe and Mazahir Salih winning the at-large spots. From this primary, 3 candidates will make it out of the vote and be elected to the board.
And Jordan, I believe you were covering Mandy Remington's watch party a couple months back.
Yeah, it was, so it certainly brings back a lot of memories for me, Johnny.
Well, hopefully we'll begin deja vu throughout this last show of the year, but we're going to send it out to Cara Dulin. This will be her last time ever on the update as she'll be graduating. She has more updates from the state level.
Thanks, Johnny. Now that the legislative session has ended, we're not going to be seeing the same influx of bills that we have been since January, but that doesn't mean that people in Des Moines are just going to be twiddling their thumbs waiting for the next election. One thing we didn't cover last week was the state budget, which increased by 4.2%, or $361 million this year from last year's $8.5 billion in spending. Even still, the legislature won't be spending all of that available revenue this year, and Iowa's projected to end the fiscal year with a $2.4 billion surplus, $3.8 billion in the state's taxpayer relief fund, and almost $930 million in reserve funds. For the 2025 fiscal year, the bulk of the money will go to standing appropriations, which means these are the funds that are generally allocated for the same things every year and don't need to be discussed in the legislature. After that, the next biggest chunk of funding is for health and human services. And even if we won't be here to update you over the summer on what's going on around the state, here's what to expect. Governor Kim Reynolds will continue to work on signing anything into law that made it through the legislature, and some of these laws may begin to be implemented. However, some laws may face challenges in the court. Iowa's controversial immigration law may be one of these, but that's still up in the air. Other than that, the government will continue planning for the next legislative session and preparing for the election. Now, Jordan and Johnny, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Cara. And Jordan, talking about Iowa, I think this is the first time in a while we've said that things are slowing down here in the state.
Yeah, Johnny, things may be slowing down here in the state, but here in Iowa City, I can feel the weather heating up, and around the country, so are the politics.
And now we're going to take it to Jayce, who's in the newsroom, where he's going to tell us what to expect around the nation going on into the summer and the hotter months.
Thanks, Johnny. And protests on college campuses around the country are continuing to grip the nation's attention. Students at Columbia University, the University of Pennsylvania, Brown University, and dozens of other colleges are doing their protests in the form of encampments on the lawns of the schools. There have been several instances of protesters clashing with police, and over 100 demonstrators have been arrested around the country. The University of Southern California is embroiled in even more controversy after barring their valedictorian from speaking at the college's upcoming graduation to avoid them from mentioning the Israel-Hamas war. After fellow graduates erupted in protest, the ceremony was canceled outright. 2 speakers set to appear at the university's education school graduation have pulled their speeches in response. Early on Monday, protesters at Columbia voted to stay past the university's ultimatum to vacate before 2 p.m. or face suspension. Columbia is also facing a new lawsuit from an anonymous Jewish student who is accusing the university of failing to provide a safe environment for students of Jewish faith. Meanwhile, lawmakers across the political spectrum are calling for the demonstrations to end. While Republicans have called on Columbia's administration to immediately step down, Democrats are warning the university to end the protests or face similar calls for resignation. Protesters have given no indication that the protests will be ending, continuing their calls for the university to financially and politically separate from Israel.
Close and divest and defend student voices, and that's like our bottom line.
Students are putting potentially their degrees on the line, they're putting access to future employment on the line, but in reality it's the loss of nothing in comparison to what we're fighting for and what we're trying to represent.
And with Israeli officials indicating that they believe the International Criminal Court will announce charges against both sides of the war, it seems like the Middle East will not leave the headlines anytime soon. But for now, I'll send it back to Johnny and Jordan in the studio.
And like we said earlier, things are heating up around the country along with the temperature. But of course, we're not going to be here in the summer to cover things for DITV. But Johnny, what are some of the next steps?
And yes, Jordan, while we'll be gone on summer break, hopefully having some fun, there's a lot of blocks that are going to fall into place that will shape up the general election in November. There are still 10 presidential primaries to complete. The final ones will end June 4th with Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, and South Dakota. Both the former president and current president have way passed the delegation threshold to earn their party's nomination. 44 states will hold primaries in the coming months, all the way up until the general election. This will be 4 state representatives, and here in Iowa, all 4 districts are up for grabs. Additionally, 33 states will also have Senate races, but Iowa will not. Independent candidates will have dates in June through October to get their names on the ballots. Thresholds for achieving a spot on a ballot range from attaining anywhere between 275 and 219,403 signatures, and fees ranging from $250 to $35,000. The national conventions where the Democrat and Republican presidential nominees and vice president nominees will take place over the summer. The Republicans will most likely crown Donald Trump and his vice presidential pick as nominees in Milwaukee, Wisconsin through July 15th and 18th. President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will also most likely get the nominations for the Democratic Party in Chicago, Illinois between August 19th and 22nd. Following that, there will be 3 presidential debates between September and October and 1 vice presidential debate in September. The general election will be held in 6 months to the day on November 5th, 2024, and we here at The Update will keep you in the loop. Speaking of keeping people in the loop, Jordan, we're going to be tossing it over to some of the people who came on later in the year who have more updates about these presidential candidates.
Yeah, Johnny, and I've just been super curious about what some of these candidates have been doing around the country. So we're going to send it out to Ryan Lynch, who has this week's candidate profile.
Thanks, Jordan and Johnny. And last week, we looked at some candidates seeking the Libertarian nomination and provided some brief background on them. So this week, we'll provide an in-depth look on Chase Oliver, one of the leading Libertarian candidates. Oliver was born in Nashville, Tennessee on August 16, 1985, and currently resides in Atlanta, Georgia. He began his political career as a Democrat as he had strong anti-war views. Oliver switched his party affiliation to Libertarian after attending a pride parade in Atlanta and getting exposed to the ideals of the party. He has experience running for political office, launching a U.S. House campaign for Georgia's 5th District in 2020, where he received 2% of the vote. Oliver ran for U.S. Senate in 2022, where he debated incumbent Raphael Warnock and an empty podium to represent the absent Herschel Walker. He got about 2% of the vote in that race as well, which led to a runoff between Walker and Warnock. Oliver advocated for ranked choice voting, which can prevent runoffs and help third-party candidates find more success in elections. He declared his candidacy for the presidency on April 3, 2023, and Oliver has gathered national attention throughout his political career, leading Rolling Stone to say he is the, quote, most influential libertarian in America. Oliver has appeared on multiple national broadcast networks and is in position as a frontrunner for the Libertarian nomination in May. And Grace, I hear you have some updates on Trump and Biden and what they have in the works on the campaign trail.
That's right, Ryan. Not much has been happening under Trump's campaign as he's been occupied with his trial in Manhattan. After leaving the courthouse on Friday, Trump challenged Joe Biden to a debate as he blames him for orchestrating the trial against him.
This is all a Biden indictment. It's in order to try and win an election, political opponent, and nothing like this has ever happened.
Despite his trial, Trump is scheduled to host rallies in both Wisconsin and Michigan on Wednesday while taking a day off, and will be making his way to New Jersey on Saturday. Meanwhile, the White House Correspondents' Dinner took place this past weekend. Special guests like Colin Jost and Scarlett Johansson were at the dinner, and Biden used it as an opportunity to make fun of former President Donald Trump by using humor as a way to convince the public that Trump is out of control and unable to handle the presidential position. Trump has been staying active on social media by calling Biden's speech at the White House Correspondents' Dinner this past weekend a complete disaster. Trump has also been using social media to warn followers about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., saying that he is more of a threat than Joe Biden to our democracy. Trump described him as a radical left lunatic. Despite Biden's efforts, Trump still leads Biden by 6 points in the national polls. This summer is sure to bring future rallies and turning points in the presidential campaign. In the meantime, I'll send it back to Jordan and Johnny.
Thanks, Grace and Ryan. And Jordan, with all this being said, polls, you've been looking at them pretty much this entire semester, so any new changes to them?
Yeah, Johnny, like you said, I've been following the polls all year. And first up, we got some favorability rating from the 2 state senators here in Iowa. Senator Chuck Grassley, who's been in office for a whopping 40 years, is starting to see dips in his approval according to a poll done by the Des Moines Register. 46% of Iowans have a favorable view of the senator, with 43% disapproving. The 46% is a downturn from just last month, where he saw 51% approval. The opposite is happening for Grassley's fellow Senator Joni Ernst. 47% currently approve of the job she's doing, with 43% dissenting. This is an improvement from last year compared with only 45% improving last year. And now we bump up our scale to nationwide with the presidential races this November. For months on end, we've seen Donald Trump and Joe Biden in a competition to see who could edge each other to the top of the polls. Now, this week isn't as much of an edging contest, but the race is still close nonetheless. This poll done by Harvard University shows Trump leading with a 4 percentage point margin over the incumbent Biden, sitting at 45 and 41% respectively. Included as a wild card factor in this poll is independent Robert Kennedy Jr., who pulled in 14%. And of course, while we won't be covering anything over the summer, I'll still be following these polls over the summer. And I'm just thinking, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they've been so neck and neck over the past couple weeks. It's just a razor's edge to see who's going to win this year.
Yes, Jordan, and this will go down as one of the most competitive races in history. And speaking of history, we're going to go into this week in history. And for our final week in history of the semester, we've got a lot to get into, and we'll be starting in Los Angeles. On April 29th, 1992, after 4 LA policemen were acquitted for arresting and beating Rodney King, riots erupted in LA for 6 days. Looting, arsons, and assaults plagued the LA area, leading to 63 deaths, 2,383 injured, and over 12,000 people arrested, and on top of that, over $1 billion in property damage. On April 30th, 1789, American General George Washington was sworn into office to be the first president of the United States, 6 years following the conclusion of the American Revolution. In his time, Washington would found what current-day Congress looks like, supporting the creation of the American economy and maintaining good relationships with some European countries during his 8 years in office. On May 2, 2011, Al-Qaeda co-founder and leader Osama bin Laden was found and killed after a decade-long manhunt. Bin Laden, who claimed responsibility for the 9/11 attacks, was found hiding in Pakistan. The CIA led the raid, killing bin Laden and 5 other members of the compound. Then on May 4, 1970, in the heat of the counter-protest against the Vietnam War, National Guardsmen opened fire on a crowd of 500 protesters at Kent State University in Ohio. When the smoke was settled, 4 students were killed and 9 were injured. The widespread media coverage hit America TV sets and would see a growth in anti-war sentiment. The Guardsmen who were brought to trial were acquitted of any wrongdoing. And for the wrap-up, Christopher Columbus discovered Jamaica, the Wall Street crash of 1893, the Haymarket Square riot in Chicago, and Cinco de Mayo. And with all that history being said, people, they always have to be looking over, checking for the facts and making sure they're straight, Jordan.
Yeah, Johnny, you're presenting a lot of factual information, and I'm sure the viewers of this show are looking over some of that information that you're putting upon us. So to send out for our fact check this week is Jayce Bertrand.
Thanks, Jordan. And for the last fact check before the summer, I found it fitting for us to take a trip down memory lane to look back at some of the biggest lies of this year. And to start, we're going to take a look at America's favorite former politician, George Santos. Santos himself has given us enough lies for a whole show, but during his time as a lawmaker, some of his best work included claiming his mother died in 9/11 when she was actually in Brazil, claiming he was only Jewish only to backtrack when he was, quote, Jew-ish, and denying he knew anything about OnlyFans only to then be impeached for using campaign funds to pay for an OnlyFans account. However, he's not that bad of a singer.
Hi, Jayce. Look, I'm sorry that you're sad that I'm gone, but here's a reality. This is what the GOP is thinking right now. In their heads, is that they screwed up. And you know what I'm singing in my head? When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair, you're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. Bye.
And that right there was a cameo clip of Santos, who set up the account shortly after he was impeached to get a bit of revenue coming in. So we figured we can't pass up this opportunity. But moving past George Santos, John Fetterman has gained the ire of a fair amount of his younger supporters after backing away from his position as a progressive politician following the start of the Israeli-Hamas war. After being criticized for his support of Israel, Fetterman seemingly did a full 180 on many of his policies to the point where some Republicans applauded him for his shift. While some would call this just a change in opinion, the outrage from his new remarks was enough to include him on this list. And finally, we'll be taking a look at Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s many claims about his knowledge about the Kennedy administration. In a podcast interview, RFK Jr. claims to remember how his father and then President John F. Kennedy were planning to dismantle the CIA, which he posits is why his uncle was killed. However, RFK Jr. would have been 9 in 1963 when JFK was shot, which makes it highly unlikely he would have been able to have genuine first-hand knowledge of the inner workings of the Kennedy administration. And while these amount of lies can give us a bit of a laugh every now and then, it's really important to always remember the truth first and foremost when they pop up. But for now, I'm going to send it back to Johnny and Jordan in the studio.
Thank you, Jayce. And Jordan, since there's only one senior on our crew, we're going to be tossing it to somebody who, was one of our founders and, we'll never forget.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're certainly going to miss her. So this week, giving us our last for your consideration is Cara Dulin.
Thanks, Jordan. For this week, I want to leave you guys with something to think about while we're on our break. Listen, we know politics and news can kind of suck. There's always so much going on, and a lot of it is honestly kind of a bummer. And on top of that, with social media and the digital world, it feels like the news is coming at us from all different angles, and it can be totally overwhelming. And I know a lot of people who just don't keep up with the news for that reason. That's part of the reason why we made this show, to keep you guys up to date in manageable portions. That being said, it's so important to at least have some idea of what's going on around your community, your state, and the world. This is the information we base our voting decisions on. And with the presidential election coming up, that knowledge is more important than ever. Now, I'm not saying you need to get politics alerts on your phone 24/7, but I am saying that until the update comes back from break, just keep an eye on what's going on, find the news consumption level that works for you, and stick with it, because when it comes to government and elections, the best thing you can do is be knowledgeable. Jordan and Johnny, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Cara. And thank you for tuning in to the update all year long. I mean, your support and watching us really means a lot to us.
Yes, folks, and remember not to tune in next week, but tune in next year in September, where we'll continue the update for next school year.
And while you may be able to see, maybe the 6 faces here on the update, it is more than just that. We have an entire staff of supporters and people who help behind the show. We have a lot of tech people, a lot of people who are able to help us get this through. So once again, we'd like to thank you for tuning into the update this year, and stick around, because we'll be back next year.
For the update, I'm Cara Dulin. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful summer.